Hi, everyone. I'm Erin from Erin's Music Room, and welcome to my session all about teaching improvisation. So, before we get started, a little bit about me. I have been a general music teacher since 2001. I have taught in Illinois, Michigan, and Virginia. And right now, I teach in Northern Virginia. I teach kindergarten through sixth grade, elementary general music with fifth and sixth grade chorus. So, let's get started. So, here's our outline for today. We'll start by talking about why we should be teaching improvisation. Why is it important that our students improvise in our music classes? And then we'll touch a little bit about why maybe we're not teaching improv, why we maybe shy away from it. And then I'm going to show you three different ways that you can incorporate some improvisation into your elementary music classrooms. Now, I do want to say this presentation is pre recorded. However, if you're watching it live, I am here today. So if you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the comment section or just take a note and I'll be on when this is all done to hopefully have some time to answer some of those questions for you. So let's get started. So, why teach improvisation, right? Why is it important? Why we know it's a national standard and we should be teaching it, but why is it so important? So, even though I listed technique as the first thing on the list, I actually don't think it's the most important reason. However, improvising does help develop musical technique, whether it's recorder playing, the fingerings, the air, whether it's mallet technique, if you're talking about that, what rhythmic, whatever it is that you're using to improvise. However, if we can create a safe space in our classroom where students can get away from the printed page, it can really foster their creativity. They have this sense of ownership, they can express themselves and really ultimately feel that joy of music. So, why aren't we teaching improvisation? Yikes. Most of us are probably classically trained, right? And usually improv was not included in our training. Unless you played in a jazz ensemble, chances are you weren't asked to improvise very often. And it's as I was actually preparing for this session, I ran across a joke that said, how do you get a classically trained musician or just a classical musician to stop playing? Take away their music and ask them to improvise. Seriously though, right? It's scary for us as teachers too. And if we don't feel comfortable doing it ourselves, chances are we're not going to be teaching it either. We feel very vulnerable, maybe a little insecure. Maybe we're going to lose control of the class. And then students will get silly because they can sense our insecurity. And then we're going to feel like we failed and we're never going to want to do it. But here's the good news. Improv is a learned skill, right? We all know that. Teaching improv is a learned skill, and that's what we're going to do today. So let's jump in. Check out all the ways that we can improvise and have our students improvise in the classroom. They can improvise with text and speech, whether that be a singing thing or just a spoken voice. They can improvise rhythms with rhythm syllables or just on an instrument. They can improvise a melody vocally or with instruments. They can improvise movement. And then all the different ways they can do that with body percussion, with unpitched percussion, with recorders, with barred instruments. I mean, I'm sure you have other ways that we could do that too. So I'm curious in the comment section, drop in just a quick thing that maybe something you have improvised with before, whether it be rhythms or recorder. And then maybe what do you want to do, but you're a little unsure of how to do that? Type that into. I'm just curious, and we'll talk about that. So we're actually going to do quite a few of these today, and you'll see that some of the examples. There's a melody component, and then there's also body percussion component. There's a speech that later turns into barred instruments. So just because you're doing one doesn't mean you can't also incorporate other ways as well. Okay, so I promised three activities that you can walk away with and learn how to teach these for your own classroom. The first one is call and response, where the students are going to be improvising one of the responses. And this particular activity that we'll be talking about today is really great for first grade. It's one of my favorite activities to do in first grade. Um, and you could do it in second grade or at end of kindergarten as well, but it really works well with first grade. And then we'll learn how to improvise a melody with a given rhythm that works with any kind of instrument that you want. I'll be demonstrating on recorder today. And then we're going to spend some time exploring question answer form with body percussion, unpitched percussion, and barred instruments. So you might have noticed that all three of those activities were based around some kind of a form, right? Call and response, given rhythm, question answer. So why are we talking so much about form? Because structure is key for improvisation. You can't just say, hey, go make up some music. That's scary. Students need parameters, they need structure, they need scaffolding. We can't just expect them to pull these ideas out of nowhere. So along that line, before we even start to echo or to improvise, we need to echo patterns, singing on the instruments, rhythms, body percussion, a lot of it. So, because we're building toolboxes, we're putting tools in their toolboxes so that when they get on their own, then they'll have all these patterns in their ears, in their bodies that they can pull from. You'll notice that when students start to improvise, the first things they do are patterns that they've heard a thousand times, right? And you might be thinking, well, that's not very creative. How do I get them to be more creative? Well, it builds, right? So they echo with what they improvise with what they know. That's in their toolbox. And then once they are comfortable improvising, that's when the magic happens. That's when they kind of break away from what they've only heard. And then they start to actually improvise some brand new ideas of their own. But they do have to have that structure first. The last key component you're going to hear me talking a lot about today is modeling. You need to be comfortable improvising in front of your students. They need to hear patterns, examples, demonstrations, and a lot of it. Again, we're building their toolboxes. I did play jazz growing up, and one of my teachers always said the best way to learn how to improvise was by listening to a lot of people improvising. So you need to be that musician for your students. A lot of modeling, lots and lots and lots of it. So we'll start with a first grade activity. I say first grade because it's great me, but if you teach me in the end of kindergarten, you can certainly teach this activity in kindergarten or even at the beginning of second grade. I tended to use it in first grade, and first grade, my students really love this activity. I wrote a whole blog post about it, so you can pop on over there later when you have some time. I'm not going to go into detail how I teach this. As you can see, there's a lot of words and it's a lot of back and forth. Can be a little tricky sometimes to teach call and response. But I do go into detail on that about my blog post. I use a puppet to help, which of course is at school right now, so I'm just going to use my hand. But the song goes like this. Come back home, my little chicks. We won't come. Why not? We're afraid of what? Of the wolf. Where's he hiding? In the woods. What's he doing? Washing. What's he drying his face on? On the kitty's tail. So that ending is obviously what the students are going to be improvising. They're going to make up their own lyrics, they can on the piano or make up a little melody as well. So while I'm teaching the song, I change the ending every time so that they soon realize, oh, that part gets to change. Oh, that part gets to be a little silly. So then I ask if anyone has another idea that they'd like to share. I don't ask that they sing it, but they can. And most of the time they would naturally sing it on his shirt, or with his friend or something like that. So, but if they don't sing it, you might encourage, be like, oh, I like that idea. What would it sound like if you sang it? Just invite them, and it's not a big deal if they don't. And that's it for day one. Okay. Let it go, let them internalize it, let them sleep on it, and really absorb it before we add on. Next time, maybe we play the game, which is super fun. It's a chase game. I added it into the handouts for this. And then we're going to move on to the instruments. So actually, I want to tell you this one before we go on to the instruments. This is just kind of an example of all the different ideas that they could have. What's he drawing his face on? On the teacher's shirt, or with some bread, with the curtains, or whatever it is. So they're adding on their own little melody, their own little lyrics, and then we play the game. I'll just briefly explain it. The kids stand in a circle. The mother hen is in the middle, and the chick is on the outside of the circle somewhere else in the room. So the mother hen sings the song, the call, rather, all by themselves. And this is like after a couple days of just sitting in our seats and singing it as a soloist who's not me. But again, we go through this whole big process. I'm not going to go over it right now, but the game at the end, what's he drawing his face on? And the chick sings their answer. And then the mother chases the chick, essentially trying to get the chick to come home. So it is a really fun game. Only two people are chasing, so it's not overly crazy, but the kids really like it. Now we're going to move on to instruments. So at this point of the year, my students have already learned so and me, and we'll start with echo playing. Okay, I used to keep a little xylophone on my lap, and I would sing, echo play. But now I teach it or I echo my patterns with a big xylophone, like picture on the board like this, and I'll sing the letter names. So I might go C. And then I don't think this is a C. C, 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 A. And then they echo it, but they can actually see it really big up on the screen, and it's really helpful. And then I'll do the same pattern with solfa. So, me. Okay, and then I'm going to say, how would we play the phrase, we won't come, on our instruments? And then give them time to figure it out. Give them time to noodle around for a minute. It's going to be loud, little bit chaotic. You hope the admin doesn't walk by, right? But they need that individual time to figure it out on their own. And then we are going to write it down. So you call on someone, can anyone play it on their instrument for me? Or does anyone want to tell me the letter names? And someone tells you, you write it down, and then you teach them, be my echo, C, C, A, and then give them time to practice that. It sounds really simple, but they do need a little time to do that on their own. And then I will sing the mother hen part, and you will play the chick's response on your instruments. Okay. And then, how would we play the ending? Oh, that's right. Interesting. So I can say, well, you have two beats to work with. You can play something that you would sing like on the piano, do, 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 do. Or you can just play two beats with C and A. So I say you have two beats. You can use C and A, and it can be a thought that you have in your head, like with specific words, or it doesn't have to be. And then guess what you have to do? Model it. Give them several examples. You could do 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 or do or do or do something like that. Okay, lots and lots of examples, and then give them time on their own to practice it in a full group setting. Okay, it's very safe. Everyone's playing. No one's really listening to them, and then sing the call. Play the response, choose a soloist. Then you could even play the call, play the response, choose a soloist. It's always interesting because if you only play it, they know exactly where you are. And it's just really cool. You'd be like, how did you know we were at the ending? Because we get to the ending and a whole bunch of mallets shoot up because they really want us to play the solo. And how did you know we were at the ending? I wasn't even singing it. They're just so cute. They're like, well, I was singing it in my head. Or, oh, there's that extra note over there. So they will pick up on that. And they really, like I said, this is one of my first grade's favorite activities. The game is super fun. The song is cute. It's playful. It integrates our song literature, has parameters. So I think you're really going to love this one. Okay, let's move on. Okay, activity number 2, improvising a melody with a given rhythm. Okay, now I've chosen Peas Porridge Hot for this one. I always like to use really simple poems that they've known since forever, very simple tatiti rhythms. I mean, obviously my third graders are not just doing tatiti anymore, but when they're improvising, that's what we're going to do. And then as they get older and they've done this kind of thing and the younger grades, and then they get into like maybe 5th or 6th grade, they can improvise to some more challenging poems. Alligator pie. Really get some mallet technique in there with their 16th notes and everything. But start very simple. I also don't suggest that you use songs that have a really well-known melody already put on there, like Hot Cross Buns. I wouldn't take that rhythm and ask them to improvise a melody, because that melody, it's really hard to subtract already well-known melodies from the rhythm. So go ahead and start with something that's usually just spoken. So my process for this is first read the rhythm, then read and tap it, then play all of it. I usually do this first with recorder in 3rd grade. I tap or play all of it on a B. And of course I demonstrate, even though you guys don't need to hear that. I'm not going to do that right now. And then say, okay, now we're going to use B and A, and you get to choose where you use those notes. And then guess what? Yep, we model. So for example, okay. And I say, or you could do something like this. And maybe I don't model the whole thing every single time. I might just go, okay, or, okay, things like that. So lots and lots and lots of modeling. Then we do that as a whole class. Okay. Then we add the G. Then I model it. We do that as a whole class. Then you're going to have you might want to say something like, okay, so see, since G is our do, let's start on a G, end on G. And sometimes I like to give them different levels of difficulty. I say, if you're still kind of feeling like you're struggling a little bit with recorder, you can play all the first line on one note, or maybe like every other beat change, and of course I explain that. So first of all, level 1, very simple, uh, not stressful. So if you're struggling with a recorder, you just want to keep it like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do this." Just do that one note per line. If you want to up the game a little bit, change every other beat. No, that's not every other beat. I call that level 2. Level 3, change every beat. Excuse me. And then I say level 4. There's like, whoa, there's a level 4. There's always a level 4, dude. Yeah, you can change the eighth notes. So you know how there's 2 eighth notes, change those. Okay. So you're differentiating here. You're giving lots of different ways that students can feel successful, but also feel challenged, right? And then I say you can even mix the levels up. Maybe you start with the first 2 lines are at level 2, and then you really want to do a level 4, and then a level 3. Sure, why not? So we do that all as a big group. Okay. And I usually am right next to the board pointing to all the beats. Okay. Then we do half the class. How about this half the class? You guys just watch and listen, and the other half the class, you guys are going to go. And then maybe birthdays in January, February, March, you guys are going to play now. Okay. So you're slowly making that group that they're improvising with smaller and smaller so that they can feel safe. Because, like we said, improvising is scary. um, this is also, and then maybe a solo. There's always someone that's going to really love to solo, and that's great. And I never make anyone solo, but there's always going to be a few. Can I do a solo? Absolutely. Let's hear it. So this is also the kind of activity that really need or leads naturally to composition. And this is one of the ways that I teach composition is with this given rhythm. I say, improvise. Right? They've all done that by this point, when I'm starting to teach composition. So improvise something. This is how composers write their music. Like they play around for a while, they see what they like, and then they write it down. So I say it might be the third thing that you play, it might be the 20th thing that you play. But when you hear something that you love, stop and write the letter names down. Okay. So this is really great. Works really well with recorder. I wouldn't do it before like right away. Obviously, they need to be able to play the recorder, and they probably at this point they've been playing for a few weeks. They have 5, 6, 7 BAG songs that they know really well. We've echoed a ton of recorder, and then as just before we got starting to go on to a new note, that's when I pull out a little improv. Okay, and then we'll do it again at the end of with our E unit and we'll add some low E. So this works really well, like I said, on barred instruments or recorder. So let's move on to our last one. All right. So our last activity that we're going to talk about today is probably one of my favorite ways to improvise with my students. We're going to do some question answer improv today. It's a little freer. There's still some parameters that we're going to add in there. This is a really great activity to do with upper grades. Okay. So like fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. It still offers structure and parameters. So if you've never taught improv before, and you're thinking, okay, great, but I didn't start it in first grade. Like they're not going to be able to do some of this stuff. This is a really great activity that you can do right away at the beginning of the year, even with those older kids. It's safe. It's really fun. So obviously not obviously, we start with body percussion. Okay. And we are always going to start with echoing. Now it says 8-beat in here. I actually start with 4-beat echo patterns, and then I go to 8-beat echo patterns. And so we do that for a while. And then we move on to the actual question answer. So I say, now instead of being my echo, you're going to be my answer. That means you're going to be clapping a different 8-beat pattern than me. So because I always say this example, this exact example, I say, if the question is, what are we having for dinner tonight? The answer is not, what are we having for dinner tonight? Right? That's echoing. You have to do something different. The answer could be, let's have spaghetti and meatballs for dinner tonight, right? It's something different. So we start with some parameters. We're only going to be clapping. Now I model it myself. I say, if the question's over here, the answer is going to be over here. So for example, I'm the question, I'll go first. Answer. Okay, so it's the same length. I used only clapping, but they were two different patterns. So we do that with clapping, and then we are going to add some body percussion as we go. All right, so here to demonstrate this today is my son Jack. He's 11, and he actually did this in my music class with me last year. So he's going to demonstrate the answer, and I'm going to be the question. All right, buddy, we're only going to use clapping, right? Okay, here we go. I'm the question. I'll go first. You go. Nice job, bud. So after you've done that with just question or clapping, you'll notice we went question, answer, question, answer. That's going to be the form for all of it. You do it 2 times. Then you would start to slowly add some body percussion. I do patting next, then I do snapping. And you'll notice on this picture, I don't actually have a stamping your foot. I found that students got a little silly with that. It ended up being jumping. It ended up being kind of a clap jump combo. And then you're going to get like this and this. And I'm always like, no, 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 no. Your levels or your choices are. So you'll probably see that too. They might just be feeling a little insecure, a little silly about it, but just keep reminding you guys, snapping, clapping, and patting. So Jack is back. Hey, we are going to, why can't I see you this time? Oh, it's because it's not a square. Maybe I can fix that later. Okay, so we're going to do our question answer improv now with all 3 of our body percussion levels. All right. All right, bud, ready? I'm the question. I'll go first. Your turn. Question. Your turn. Nice job. So you would do this where the teacher is the question and the whole class is the answer first. And then you would have the class be the question and you be the answer. Then you would divide the class into 2. Questions over here, answers over here. At this point, you might want to use, well, definitely want to use some kind of a steady beat on a big tubano or some kind of a drum, and then switch roles. And then that's it for day 1. Okay. Let them sleep on it, let them internalize it, let them really soak it in. Okay. Now, next time you come back and you're going to do all that again, you're going to do it streamlined a little bit more quickly this time. And then you're going to say, now, in a musical conversation, the question and answer need to sound like they're related or about the same topic. How can we relate our answer to our question? And give them some time to think about this. They're going to come up with some really cool ideas, I bet. But if they don't, then you can tell them, well, first of all, you actually have to listen to the question, right? You have to pay attention to what the question is doing. Then you can use some of the same rhythms, but different body percussion. And give them an example of that. You can use the same body percussion or similar body percussion, but change the rhythms. You can repeat this first part and then change the ending a little bit. You can match their style. So, for example, if my style over here is very simple with quarter note and eighth notes, the answer, if the style is not matching, is going to sound really ridiculous. It doesn't match. It doesn't sound related. So, those are some ways that you can talk about relating your answer to your question. So, at this point, I'm the question again. Try to relate your answer. And then you can go on to partners. Now, you can say, listen, I'm going to ask you what you try. Try one of these strategies with your partner. And then see, would anyone like to share? Who was the answer? Would anyone like to share what you did? And see what they say. All right, so Jack is back again. This time he's going to be the answer. We were just talking about this. Do you want me to do the answer or you want me to do the answer? No, you can do it. You're going to be great. All right, so question answer. I'm the question and he's going to be my answer. He's really going to listen. He's going to try to do one of these strategies that we've been talking about. All right, ready, bud? I'm the question. I'll go first. Your turn. Very nice. So you could stop there. That's great improv, just using body percussion and rhythms. And that high level thinking at the end. How do you relate your answer to the question? That's enough. However, if you wanted to keep going, maybe the next day or later in the school year, you could transfer this knowledge to unpitched percussion instruments. So again, everyone has an instrument. Teacher's the question, everyone is the answer, and then half the group again, setting that safe space for them to feel comfortable improvising, and then partners. And I always do this with my partners just to kind of make the sound a little bit easier. Whoever has the hand drum is the question, and whoever has the other an unpitched percussion instrument is the answer, and then switch. Okay. And then I say, now that we have percussion instruments, how can we relate our answer to the question now? It's a little bit, have quite as many options, but it's still doable. So that's on a different day, right? And then put the instruments away, do something else for the rest of class, and move on next time to barred instruments if you want. All right, moving on. Now we're going to take that knowledge and transfer it to barred instruments. Now, I do want to pause and say that I have in the past, I've done this activity a lot with different grade levels. And one year I decided, I don't know, I'm just going to skip the body percussion and unpitched percussion. I don't think it's not that important. I was wrong. Okay. Adding melody to this adds a whole new layer of complexity. So it really made a big difference. I noticed a big difference with the students. They didn't have that general improv basis with the body percussion, which is body percussion is very safe, feels very comfortable, very natural for them. They don't have to worry about using a technique on an instrument or anything. And then again, the hand drums, there's no melody to think about, so it's even easier than barred instruments. So I don't suggest just jumping into barred instruments. However, if you're short on time, you obviously you could do whatever you wanted. So let's begin. So first, we're going to build their toolbox with some melodies in their ears. It says 8-beat, but really I do 4 beats and then I move on to 8 beats in a little while. So we're echoing patterns. I usually do it with letter names and solfa. So I'll do letter name first and then I'll do the exact same pattern with solfa. Do some 4 beats, do some 8 beats. Okay, so now instead of being my echo, you're going to be my answer. Now remember, parameters, just like we only started with clapping, we are only going to start with C and G. All right, because those are the most two important when you're, do and so. We're only starting with C and G. And we're going to start on C and we're going to end on C. Now I'm going to go through all these next couple slides and show you the outline, and then I'll bring Jack back in the room and I'll demonstrate that. Then we'd add an E, again, start on C, end on C. Now you can use all 3 of the notes. And then to save some time, I'm just going to keep this on the same slide. We're going to add an A, and then we get to add a couple more notes. We finally add that D. Now I say, here's the thing about D. And I say, what solfa pitch would it be? And they're all going to say it's re. So right, re. Re is not a note that needs to be stressed a lot. I like to think of it as a very strong cooking spice, right? You don't want a whole lot, just a pinch, just a little sprinkle. Because if you get too much, it's not going to sound right, right? And I say also try to use re as a stepping stone to get from mi to do or from do to mi. So you just want to use it just a little bit. And of course, what am I going to do now? I'm going to model it. And then we add high do, and then we're going to have Jack come back in. All right, so now we've added on that high do up there. High C, you can start on either C, really. I probably should have circled both of them. But so now I'm going to demonstrate all of those steps, starting with just C and G. And then I'm going to add on to the E so that you can see it in action. All right, buddy, you ready? I'm going to be the question. You're going to be the answer. We can only use C and G right now. Here I go. Your turn. Your turn. Good. And I reminded him earlier today, but I would also remind my students, start on C, end on C. Now, let's do an E in there, okay? Here I go. Your turn. That's okay. Go ahead. Start again. Good. Your turn. You have another mallet. smell it too, you know. Okay. Now we're going to add the A. Here I go. Your turn. Mm-hmm. Your turn. Okay. Add the D. Remember we talked about D being mostly a stepping stone to get from C to E. Here I go. Your turn. Seven. There you go. Sorry. Halfway through that other one, our dog kind of crawled right in by our feet here. So he was a little distracted. And then we'd add that high do, but we're going to move on for right now. So then you're going to make it even more musical sounding. So ask your students, why does this formula here, where the question starts on a C and then ends on something that's not a C, and then the answer starting on something that's not a C and ending on a C, why does that make it sound more like a conversation? Why does, why does that make sense? And then say, since C, and they might come up with this on their own, but since C is the do, ending the answer on a C makes sense because it sounds like the conversation is over. But you don't want the question to sound like it's the end of the conversation yet, because it's not. So if you end on do, it will. So now go through that whole process again. Lots of practice for improvising here. Student or the teacher is the question. Start on C, end on something else. Answers, now the whole class. Don't start on C and end on C. And then go back and forth. Students are all the question. I'm the answer. Then split the class in half. Question, answer, then switch. Think about what you're starting and ending on. Okay, so now we're going to demonstrate that with the question starting on C, ending on something else, answer starting on something else, ending on C. What would you like to be, question or answer?
Answer.
Okay, so you're going to start on something that's not a C and then work your way to a C. Either C is fine. Okay, again, question, answer, 2 times through. I'm the question. I'll go first. Your turn. That's okay. Your turn. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Very nice. Okay, so after you've done half the class here, half the class is the answer, half the class is the question, do this with partners and make sure you're starting and ending on the correct notes. You can say, to make it even more musical, use mostly stepwise motion. Again, demonstrate that. Demonstrate what jumping all around sounds like. Say we're not monkeys, we're musicians. Starting on the correct note. Use some interesting rhythms. It's not just, like make some musical rhythm patterns with it. And then talk about, now that we have the melody, how can you relate your answer to the question? Okay, so now we have even more possibilities. And then an optional ending for this, if you want to, this is the ultimate challenge, to have a musical conversation with yourself. Okay, say you're going to be the question and you're going to be the answer. So I'll demonstrate first, and I want you to see if you can try to figure out where the question stops and where the answer begins. Here I go. Okay, 16 beats. And they, of course, all can, now that they've done this a lot, and they know exactly like what notes the answer is going to probably end on, or sorry, the question's probably going to end on, where the answer's probably going to start. Again, give them time to noodle around by themselves. Everyone does it together. Keep a big, strong drum beat, and then see if you want to have some solos. So that's the end of my presentation on improvisation today. I hope you got something out of it that you feel like you can learn. Just a reminder, I am here today, so if you have any questions, go ahead and pop those in, and I'll stick around for a little while and answer those. I do have the lessons that you saw for the Come Back Home, My Little Chicks and the question answer improv in my store, ready for you to go. They are on sale during this sale time, this conference time. Everything is 20% off. So go, and if you're interested in using those 2 lessons, it'll walk you through it step by step. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your conference. It's winding down a bit here, but thank you very much for coming today. I appreciate it. And let me know if you have any questions at all.